Okay, thanks for coming. Sorry about that technical glitch there. I couldn't get the PowerPoint started. So my name is Grace, Grace Van Mill. I'd like to welcome you tonight on behalf of MCIC, the Manitoba Council for International Cooperation. We're happy to be back with you for another Local Brews and Global Views discussion night. So as we begin, I want to acknowledge that I'm hosting this event from Winnipeg in Treaty 1 territory, which is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and we're on the homeland of the Métis Nation. So I just want to encourage everyone to learn more about and to acknowledge the traditional territories you're joining us from today, and to consider how we can move forward together in a spirit of reconciliation. So we're grateful for the chance to host this event, and thanks for joining. So this evening's discussion is going to be done webinar style. So you'll be able to see the speakers and ask questions through our Q&A section. You can see here on my screen where to enter your questions. And you can enter those at any time, and I'll share them with Catherine at the end. So we may also ask questions of you so that we can hear from you during the presentation. So I'm just going to launch our first question for you, and we can see maybe where you're joining from tonight. So you can see that on your screen. You can select your answer, and then I know when we're online, we can reach more people than we realize. So while you're filling that out, I'll just tell you a little bit more about tonight. So this event tonight is already the 12th in a series of coffee nights about global issues. We've talked about everything from innovation and aid to community seed banks to conservation, women's rights, and more. So I'm just looking at the polling here, and I can see that, about half of us are from Winnipeg, some are from outside Winnipeg in Manitoba, and some others from another province. So that makes sense. Since Cuso, I know, was also sharing the event, and they're headquartered in Ontario. So interesting to see that tonight. We regularly host events like this, most recently online during COVID. So you can sign up for our e-newsletter to hear more about future events. And after the session tonight, you'll receive a link to sign up for that. Or you can just follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everything. So for those who may not know, MCIC is a council of about 40 organizations working in international development and cooperation around the world. We also engage Manitobans on global issues like tonight with the important work you're going to learn about. And our vision is simply a just world. And we're looking for that for everyone. So this event is also sponsored in part by funding from Global Affairs Canada, and we're very grateful for their support. So this event is actually a part of a celebration that's going on in Canada this week called Gender Equality Week. And the theme this year is Because of You. And that celebrates the many trailblazers, activists, and advocates who are working to advance gender equality in their communities. So with that in mind, I'd now like to introduce our speaker so we can learn more about this project and Cuso's efforts to support high school girls' education and do some of that work for gender equality around the world. So Catherine is going to begin sharing her screen while I introduce her and her video. Catherine Fortin-Lauzier is the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Specialist at Kyuson International, working closely with teams around the globe to ensure impact in promoting equality and inclusion in Cuso's programming. Catherine holds a Master in Gender and Feminist Studies from the University of Ottawa and a degree in International Studies from Laval University. Her work has been focused on the promotion and recognition of diversity and gender equality in Canada and abroad. So I know we're all looking forward to hearing more about their project supporting girls' education in Ethiopia. So please join me in welcoming Catherine. And the way we do that online is you can put a plus sign in the chat or many plus signs as applause. So welcome, Catherine. I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to take a second to share my presentation with you today. And I think it's this one. Okay. Yes, I was saying, so good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. There seems to be a lot of people from all around Canada, and so I'm myself in Ontario and Ottawa, but it's nice to connect with people in Winnipeg, everywhere in Manitoba, and elsewhere where we are tonight. So as Grace said, so my name is Catherine Fortin-Lauzier. I'm the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Specialist for Kyuson International. And I have the pleasure tonight because it's 8 p.m. here, so I'll say tonight. But I have the pleasure to present a little bit of Cuso's newest project. It's called the You Girls Too project that promotes access to education for girls age 17 to 25 in Ethiopia. So just before we start, actually, I thought it would be good to get to know you a little bit. And I'm wondering if anyone with us tonight has had the chance to visit Ethiopia, maybe for vacation, to visit family, maybe for work, for volunteering, or maybe for other reason. Maybe you have one of those that reason, or it's on your, the travel list when COVID is COVID restriction will be lifted. I know it's one of my plans to go back to Ethiopia when we can. So I see that most people have not been, so I hope that tonight will be a chance for me to, I don't know, either make you very curious about Ethiopia, or get you to learn a little bit and travel through me. And for those of you that have had a chance, I hope you'll find something new to learn, or maybe that will remind you of some of your experiences over there. So to start, I just thought I would introduce you to our organization. I imagine some of you might not be familiar. So Kyuson International is an international development organization that has been working close to 60 years to reduce poverty and inequality around the world through the efforts of our volunteers, partners, and our generous donors. Kyuson International has worked in over 100 countries and currently has programming in 12 countries in different parts of the world. So in Canada, in Honduras, Jamaica, Colombia, and in Peru. In Africa, we also have programming in Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Ethiopia, as we will be talking about tonight, in Tanzania. And then we also have an office in Myanmar for our Southeast Asia program. Oops, let me just forgot that I had slides as well. So our work is structured around what we call strategic priorities. So harness the power of volunteerism to achieve the sustainable development goals, advance gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, and improve access to and the quality of economic opportunities for young people. So our programs are funded through various institutional donors, and that includes Global Affairs Canada, the European Union, UNHCR, and other generous donors that include the Manitoba Council for International Cooperation, other foundations, as well as individual donors. Kyuson International is well known for its core programming that centers around volunteer cooperation. We usually take a partnership approach to international development and work closely with local organizations, with the government, with cooperatives or private businesses to multiply impact and to build capacity to support the communities and effect long-lasting change. In the last few years, we have increased our capacity to mainstream gender equality and design projects that create change in gender norms for women and girls and their communities. We have some great projects that target gender equality in our portfolio, and that includes a project called Women Voice and Leadership in Peru, that works with 4 leading national women's rights organizations so that they can strengthen their movement, increase collaboration between the organization, and increase the efficiency of their advocacy. The project also includes a knowledge sharing component with smaller or regional women's rights organizations, and also seeks to increase the leadership of new generations of women and girls. Another example of our work is in Benin, where we are implementing the Fedi Jirima project that aims to reduce the incidence of female genital mutilation and gender-based violence in northern Benin. The project creates sensitization in the communities around the impact of female genital mutilation and gender-based violence in general, increases the participation of women, girls and their communities in the fight, and enhances the engagement of government and public institutions in preventing the abandonment of the practice. And then another example of our gender equality work is our new Share project. It's a 7-year volunteer cooperation project in over 10 countries. Over 10 countries, in 10 countries, where we partner with leading women's rights organizations, among others, to enhance their work through capacity building by deploying highly skilled Canadian volunteers, as well as e-volunteers who support the organizations online. So just a little note about what else we're doing in Ethiopia than an education project. So we recently concluded a project called Midwives Save Lives that focused on the advancement of maternal and newborn health and the reduction of maternal and newborn mortality through capacity building and the promotion of the work of midwives, as well as sexual and reproductive health for women. The project also took place in Benin, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Tanzania. In Ethiopia, we also work to advance gender equality through our volunteer cooperation program. It supports our local partners on topics such as sexual health and reproductive rights, gender-based violence prevention and intervention services, and women and youth economic empowerment. So just before I start talking about our main topic, and since the school year just started a few weeks ago, or very few days ago for some of you, I was wondering if you live with someone who has gone back to school, or even if yourself have gone back to school this month. I mean, it might be, I don't know if some of you might be going to physical school, or some of you are studying at home, or your children, brothers, sisters, and other people who live with you, or maybe no one is going to school and that's not at all something you were thinking about this month. So from the responses, we do have some people that themselves went back to school, others that are supporting people returning back to school, and I guess a few of us don't have to worry too much about catching COVID in schools. So hopefully everyone is safe these days. Great. So let me talk to you a little bit about this project that we have. So it's the newest addition to our work advancing gender equality and women's rights. It's called Promoting Greater Access to University for Girls. We call it You Girls Too. It's a bit easier. Project in Ethiopia. So it focuses on the promotion and increased access to higher education for adolescent girls in a region called Benishangul Gumuz in Ethiopia. So over the next 5 years, we will be supporting Girls Succeed and Access Education, and we'll also ensure that we create a supportive environment within their communities and their school for them to do so. The project is a partnership with the Institute of International Education and involves also other local partners such as the Bureau of Education, the Bureau of Women, Children and Youth, the Bureau of Finance and Economic Development, the Gender Department at Assosa University, as well as various women's rights organizations from the region. So maybe a little word about Ethiopia for those of you that haven't had a chance to go yet. This is the picture, is actually one that I took when I was there back in November, a sunset over Addis Ababa, the capital. So the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia is located in the Horn of Africa, landlocked between Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, and also Kenya. It's the second most populous country in the continent with over 100 million inhabitants. Its capital is Addis Ababa, and the official language is Amharic. Ethiopia is known for its enormous diversity, more than 80 languages and 200 dialects, and certain regions will have different official languages. The geography is also very diverse. It has very high mountains, a very high central plateau, and also a very diverse hydrographic system that includes the Blue Nile. Ethiopia was one of the 2 countries that preserved its sovereignty from European colonial power. Although they were occupied by Italy, that's a an interesting fact I learned while I was there during the Second World War. They were the first independent African member of the League of Nations that became later the United Nations. The current president, Sally Work-Zewde, is the first woman in the role that was elected to power in 2018. Ethiopia has put a great focus on increasing its economic development in the last few years and actually managed to double its GDP in the last 10 years. Despite these efforts, the economy still depends mostly on agriculture, and a large number of Ethiopians continue to live in poverty. So our project will be taking place in Benishangul Gumuz. I hope that the map kind of gives you an idea of where that is in Ethiopia. So located in the far west and shares a border with Sudan and South Sudan. The region has a population of about 1.12 million people, and about 87% of the population lives in rural areas. The capital is Assosa, which is located in the west of the region. It's very rich culturally. That's a very interesting fact to take into consideration for our project, with many different ethnic groups and equally diverse region for languages. The diversity also means a diversity of religion, with the presence of Orthodox Christians, Muslims, Protestants, as well as people who practice more traditional spiritualities. And the region also hosts 2 refugee camps and a transit center, mostly for Sudan and Sudanese and South Sudanese. One of the most significant issue is the disparities between boys and girls education. Generally in Ethiopia, we found that 47% of girls who enroll in the first grade of school will have left. Oh, sorry. I'll just go back. I just realized I skipped a few. Sorry about this. Technology is with me today. Okay, yay, there we go. Sorry, so I was just saying that, yeah, so 47% of the girls who enroll in the first grade of school will have left by 5th grade. And across the country, 75% of secondary school age girls do not attend secondary school. UNICEF estimates that 1.6 million of school age girls are not attending school in Ethiopia. And we found that only 27, well, I mean, those are known statistics in the country, but 27% of university students are women only. So these trends are present also in the Benishangul Gumuz region. So to prepare for this project, Kyuson International has conducted research and consulted also with local partners and girls aged between 15 and 25 to try to better understand the barriers that they face while trying to attend school and pursuing their education. The research and the consultations, they provided great insight into some of the difficulties faced by girls that impact their ability to pursue education. Those included social norm, economic barriers, barriers that relate also to school and the education system themselves. So before I talk a bit more about these barriers, I have another question for you. So I'm wondering if any of you had to go to school outside of your neighborhood or your city. So did you have to take a bus? Did you have to maybe travel a few hours? I know some people who had to, you know, completely change a different city or region. So that would be interesting to hear to go to high school. And it seems that luckily most of you had a chance to go to high school close to where you live, so that's really good. And a certain percentage, 16%, that had to travel a bit further to attend high school. And I think in that way they can relate with some of the barriers, something that is pretty common for girls in the Benishangul Gumuz region that they have, and something that they have to deal with when they want to continue to study. So let me talk to you just quickly about some of the barriers that came out of our consultations and research. So the first one, as I was saying, relates to gender norms and the social expectation that we place on girls and women. So like elsewhere in Ethiopia and around the world, we've seen some elements of this come back around COVID-19. But in the Benishangul Gumuz region, women and girls tend to take on the majority, if not all, of the domestic work at home. So that includes shopping, cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, fetching water and firewood, as well as unpaid care work for children and other relatives. During our consultations, the women said that these responsibilities were in addition to the support that they provide their husbands or their partner with farming or artisanal mining activities. Some of them said that there are slight changes where they see that men support their partners with firewood or water collection, or even with babysitting or care for the children. They use babysitting as in the interviews we did. But if some have seen some changes, others said that they do not have, sorry about this, that they do not have support from their partner on that front. Girls usually will support their mothers with these chores, which takes them away from their studies. And if the family happens to need extra support during class hour, girls may skip school, which causes delay in their learning or will discourage them from continuing their education, or at times they're even withdrawn from school. Some of the girls that we interviewed mentioned how they hope that they can help reimagine the idea that women have only to focus on home, and as they continue to pursue their education and their career. Let me just a second. Okay. There are also other cultural practices that create barriers to education for the girls. We can talk about how early marriage is common in that region, and many of the girls that we spoke with shared examples of peers marrying or becoming pregnant after grade 8. So when girls get married or have their first child, it drastically decreases their chances of continuing their education due to their new role as a wife or a mother and the duties in the household. When girls get married at an early age, it's difficult to negotiate with their often older husband to continue their studies due to the lack of decision-making power in the household, as men are commonly the decision makers. Unwanted pregnancy is also a reason for girls to stop attending school due to their role as a caregiver, but also the shame that some families feel if the pregnancy happened outside of marriage. They are usually pressured into getting married if that happens, as to not bring more shame onto the family. Girls also noted that some parents fear them getting boyfriends and becoming pregnant. So being seen walking from school with boys or the proximity between the two genders can create some fear for parents to send their daughters to school and even keep them home once they reach puberty. The lack of adequate sexual and reproductive health education also exacerbates this situation as girls get into puberty, and we've also heard that at times they get pressured into sexual activities by male students. The study and the consultation also highlighted some economic barriers to accessing school for the girls. So in lower income areas, girls often have to work to bring on extra income, which may be necessary to the household, and has a similar effect to the added burden of chores and take them away from schools. Or even leave very little time for completing their homework. When families don't have many resources, the girls say that they often feel less than if they can't afford textbooks or uniforms, and that belief stays with them throughout their studies, bringing down their confidence, but also making it difficult to perform well. One of the participants that we interviewed mentioned that her family owns a coffee house where she works in the morning if she has afternoon class, or in the afternoon if she has class in the morning, and that there are days where that makes her late or even unable to go to school. She seemed to not be certain if she will be able to complete her studies because of the importance of that income to her family. And girls working outside of school is a common scenario in the more lower income areas. of the region. And as I said, finally, there's a few barriers also that are related to the schools themselves. So we were talking about having to travel for school, but so thankfully elementary school are usually close to home, but the secondary school can be far from some of the villages where girls live. So it may be required that girls move to another village to study. So, and that also means finding housing either with a friend, with a relative, or paying for housing, which isn't always possible for all families. Some families, especially in Muslim-dominated area, choose not to send their daughters to school because they can't find housing with family for fear of sexual coercion, for rape, or unwanted pregnancies. School and the education system does not always take into account girls' specific needs, which can make it difficult for them to feel comfortable. Infrastructure may not be in place for privacy or just adequate infrastructure for girls to use washrooms during their menstruation, and girls may fear being made fun of or just decide to stay home during that time of the month. They also feel like they can't go to teacher for support. There has been some initiatives, so like Girls Club, that have been a way for them to find someone to turn to, so peer-to-peer support in the schools, and they act as a liaison to obtain, for example, sanitary pads or other forms of support that they may need. These roles do need to be made a bit more clearer and known to the girls in the school so that they can turn to them when they need support. The girls that we interviewed also mentioned being harassed and not feeling confident enough to speak about this with their male teacher. Since the number of female teachers across the school is really low, then they don't know which to turn to. They navigate daily verbal assault and harassment. And as one girl interviewed told us, she said, if a girl says no to a boy, she can become a target for physical violence easily. And some girls have also mentioned being coerced into sexual activity. In 2013, Ethiopia introduced a code of conduct on the prevention of school-related gender-based violence, so which address these concerns that the girls have expressed. But after a few years, it was noted that there was an inconsistent rollout that resulted in a lack of information and proper process, as well as a very uneven level of knowledge of the code. In school where the awareness of the code was strong, the gender focal teacher played quite a key role in this. And this also provides us with information that a combination of awareness of the code and a stronger place for female teachers will help make the school safer for the girls. And so this is where this is where I guess the inspiration for the project came. And we hope that the You Girls 2 project will address a number of these barriers. So the main goal is to promote access to higher education for high school girls, as I was saying, in Ethiopia. The project was inspired by our partner, the Institute for International Education, which is an organization based in the United States and specializing in education programming. So they created a project called Higher Education Readiness, HER for short, that support high school girls through mentorship and skill building, as well as the educational grant support. So the pilot program was launched in 2013 with female students in 2 secondary schools in Addis Ababa, and it had a great success. They found increased graduation and retention rate for secondary school girls who participated in the program. So 96% of her participants graduated from high school, and 64% of her students registered to university, which is way higher than overall school averages. So that was really great. So the success sparked our interest in renewing the project, but this time on a larger scale, so with more schools, more students, and integrated into a more holistic, multi-dimensional project. So the project, the new project, You Girls 2, has 3 main components. So the first one is to increase girls' social, academic, and soft skills to improve their outcome in secondary and higher education, so in university. So basically, the core project, the core intervention of the HER project. A community and family intervention to increase support for girls' education. And then as a third component, we will try to create a more supportive environment in schools that will support girls in their education and respond to their needs. So the project targets secondary school in 7 rural and urban districts of the Benishangul-Gumuz region. So we're expanding quite a lot with this new version of the project and hoping to reach more girls, obviously. So one other question for all of you, hoping that you're staying attentive. So, you know, we were talking about how these girls have aspiration and they're hoping to reach university. So I'm wondering if yourself, when you were in high school and you were dreaming about your career, did your career path required you maybe to attend a technical training, college, maybe a university, or anything else? There are very different ways to enter the labor market these days. So maybe a fellowship, or maybe you jumped right into your career right after high school. So I'd be interested to know what people did here. Give you a few seconds. Oh, and I think we have results. Oh, so I think a lot of people can relate to our students here in Ethiopia, as they say that they were hoping, or maybe they went to university, but we have a number of other people that also went to colleges, and I imagine you can also relate to this eagerness for learning and developing your career that our participants to the project have. So let me give you a little bit more information about what we're doing with this project. So in the first component, where we're working with the girls, so we collaborate with adolescent girls, 15 to 25, as I said earlier, to cultivate academic, social, and soft skills, which will meet the needs of the secondary so that they can finish secondary school and also enter higher education. So the beneficiaries will be girls in grade 9 and 11. We will be selected at the beginning of the school year, so coming very soon, and receive the support of the project throughout the year. You girls too will work with them on their academic skills by providing ongoing tutorial support, deliver intensive English language training, and computer skills workshop. So although schools usually teach in local languages or in Amharic, universities tend to use more English. So this is why it's necessary to strengthen the girls' level of English in preparation for the transition to university. Under this component, the girls will also attend workshops to develop their soft skills. That includes leadership, entrepreneurial, and financial literacy, as well as other life skills. The acquisition of these soft skills helps students work through the challenges and achieve their academic goals. And they also play a fundamental role in influencing their vision for the future, their perception of selves, and also the value that they place on the education in their life plan. So we also are putting in place a mentorship program that will pair the girls with peer mentors to encourage support and skill transfer. And then we found that providing coordinated and holistic support leads to improved academic performance, leadership abilities, as well as self-sufficiency. We've discussed earlier a little bit as well, but there was an evident need for girls to learn more about sexual and reproductive health and rights. So researchers have found that this has a very positive impact on teenage dropout rates, teenage girls, their dropout rates, early marriages, as well as pregnancies. So girls were exposed to sexual health and reproductive rights curriculum, stay longer in school, they achieve better results, they also enjoy a better quality of life. Girls can also avoid sexually transmissible illnesses or pregnancy, which we know is a frequent cause for dropping out of school, as they shared during the interviews. So you girls too will include sexual and reproductive health workshops in the targeted school for the intervention. And then on another aspect, we are providing educational material as well as financial support, such as monthly stipends, shoes, uniforms, and reference books to alleviate some of the costs for the girls and the families of them attending school. So over the 5 years of the project, we should have 1,000 adolescent girls that will take part in it. So be direct beneficiaries in 7 districts of the region. So we're having kind of a varied locations for the intervention. So we, as I was saying, we also have a very strong community component to support the girls. So the idea is to address harmful social and gender norms that prevent girls from reaching and accessing higher education. So you girls too place a great focus on positively changing the environments and the perception of the communities that the girls live in. So to address this, the project will create gender sensitization training and workshops that will be delivered to the parents, local education board members, religious and local leaders, as well as the communities. This will encourage a positive change of attitude and behavior around the norms that affect girls' ability to pursue their education, especially if we think back on some of the barriers that we heard from the girls as I was talking about a bit earlier. The project will create a conducive environment to support girls' education through what we call community conversations, so spaces that to discuss issues at the community level. In collaboration with our local partner organizations, You Girls Too is preparing campaigns to increase awareness on girls' education through socially influential people. So I wouldn't say social influencers, but kind of at the community level. So for example, these could be women role models, social clubs, religious leaders, community elders. The project will also engage these leaders, teachers, and as well as mothers groups so that they can become advocates for girls' education. We also mentioned, and that came quite often in some of the interviews that we did, that poverty is among one of the factors that hinders girls' educational opportunities, and lower income families will often favor boys when investing in education. So a crucial focus of the project is to improve parents' economic status by integrating parents into the training. So 1,000 families will be receiving support, obviously once all the girls are selected, but they will also be part of the trainings, and they will receive support to improve agricultural practices through innovations and assistance in business development, in farming, and automotive innovation. They will also receive entrepreneurial and financial literacy training so that they can better understand and maybe plan their finances or their businesses. And we hope that working with targeted families and communities will become, they will become more stable economically, and that will relieve some of the barriers, economic barriers to education. And then finally, in our third component, You Girls Too will work with both teachers and administrators at the school and the district level to promote greater gender awareness and sensitivity on adolescent girls' education. This means ensuring that they can offer inclusive, gender responsive, so really being able to address some of the needs of the girls, safe and accessible education. So at the school level, the project will work with teachers to offer training and support on participatory and gender-sensitive teaching methodologies. So by responding better to their female student needs, the teachers will create a more participative and a better learning environment for them. Through the pilot that our partner conducted, we found that when girls felt strong support from their teachers, they participated more. They felt more comfortable in class, and eventually this also increased their GPA and leadership competencies. The project will also place school coordinators and counselors in the schools. They tend to play a significant role in supporting the girls from a more holistic point of view and not only an academic one. And then finally, the project also collaborates with the Bureau of Education So, which is the equivalent of a Ministry of Education, to strengthen their capacity to support the schools and the teachers. Officials will receive gender sensitization workshops to improve their awareness of the difficulties adolescent girls face when they are pursuing their education. A research component is also included to conduct actions research or participative research, and share findings and best practices to integrate them in policies and procedures. We think it's important to create awareness and strengthen the existing education system to help it integrate the gender responsive approach and solidify the practices in the school for the future. So over the 5 years of the project, we anticipate that we will work with over 360 teachers, school administrators, officials, district school board members, and that in the end will benefit between 7,000 and 9,000 students in the region. So what's next? I've talked to you a lot about what we're wanting to do, but and that is because the project has just launched a few months ago, and already the project team in Ethiopia has been really busy planning and preparing for the beginning of the school year, which started in or was trying to start in September. Obviously, with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's been an unusual start for the project and for the schools, a bit like here, where everyone is adapting and adjusting. So schools are starting this month. Travel is now easier for most of our team, which is based in, we're based in Addis Ababa, to travel to Asosa, which is kind of the center point for the project. So with our partners, the Institute for International Education, the Bureau of Education, and the local organization, we're already preparing the monitoring and evaluation plan for the project to ensure that we reach our goals. We're developing training and some of the community activities. Last week, we were actually hosting a really big workshop with all the partners and members of the community so that they can rally around the project, confirm some of the more specific intervention, and clarify roles, what exactly, which pieces goes to who for the project. So with the support of local women's rights organizations, we're preparing some of the gender sensitivity trainings, the gender equality and the girls' education campaigns, as well as some of the training for the families. So in the fall, we're going to be identifying the girls who will participate in the project, so the girls that will receive the training and mentoring, which is a very, very crucial step for us. So 400 girls this year, so during 2020, 2021, so 250 from grade 9 and 150 from grade 11 will be identified with the support of our partners to take part in the project. So the school year is starting right now, but girls in grade 9 and in grade 11 are currently completing entry exams for the year. So we're waiting for them to complete those. We hope succeed, and then we will really move on to identify the beneficiaries of the project. Once that's done, that means that we will also be able to start the work with the families. So probably towards the in December or in the new year. And then yes, so hopefully another component that's coming up for us is the recruitment of Canadian volunteers to support the project. So obviously when COVID-19 allows us to do so, we're hoping maybe starting in April 2021. So over the 5 years of a project, we are looking to be sending around 40 volunteers to support creating community campaigns, develop gender sensitive and participative curriculums, support maybe as gender or communication advisors for the various partners of the project, and really strengthen the intervention and make sure that they stay once the project is over. So we have to keep in mind that things may change depending on what happens with the pandemic, as all of you are doing with your daily lives, I guess. So just adjusting as things go and see what we can do and how to do it. That's one of the main factors. But we are very excited for this project, and we have plans in place to try to adapt if we need to do this further. Yeah, so thank you for listening to this. If you want more information or want to try to follow a little bit our project, you can go to our website where we will be sharing more updates as things go on. And who knows, maybe I can come back and give you an update a year from now about how these girls are doing their education.
Thank you. That was really interesting. So I'm just going to share my screen again so people can see where to put their questions. So if you haven't used Zoom before, if you hover your mouse over the bottom of the screen, this menu will pop up and you'll be able to click Q&A to enter your questions. So yeah, I think, Catherine, that was really interesting, actually. I think while people are entering their questions, I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
Just wondering, you shared a lot about some of the work you've done in the community, assessing their needs and asking them, about the barriers that girls are facing, that kind of thing. And I'm just wondering what the community response has been like to this project and knowing that it's begun and thoughts around that.
Yeah, well, so far the response has been good. Like we're really seeing cooperation. People were happy to share with us. And I mean, obviously the research was mindful of, making sure that girls feel safe in, sharing their, how they felt about this topic, obviously. But in the communities, because we interviewed also mothers and fathers and teachers, people and some leaders as well, and people are happy that this project is happening. I don't think we haven't come across like anyone who was like outright against sending their girls to schools, but we found that these barriers just come up, and then if you have to choose between sending one of your children to school, maybe when you think of, well, my son is going to have to get a job at some point, then that makes more sense versus sending your daughter who you think is going to have more of a role at home. So these are the things that we will be working with them to change their perceptions around, the girls also should be able to attend school, and also help them so that they don't have to make this choice, obviously. So this is why we integrated the economic intervention, because it wouldn't have been as effective without it, we think. So the response has been really positive, and we're looking forward to working with the communities.
Okay, great. Thank you. So one person has asked where this information will be posted online and where they'll find it. So I just wanted to let you know that we are eventually going to be posting the video for this on the MCIC YouTube channel. If you wanted to contact me, you could email me at pe@mcic.ca, or just respond to any of the Eventbrite emails, and I can send you the link once it's live if you're interested in that. Maybe I'll just send it out to all the participants later on when it's posted. So that's a new project we're doing, getting our videos up. I don't know if you had anything to add about your website where they could find more information about the project, in case that's what the question is about.
Yeah, so I think I shared it, but we're at CusoInternational.org. So this is a great place to find some updates about the project. We have a habit to share what we call stories. So a little bit of the so either you'll hear from the girls, from the communities, probably from the family as well, on how things are going and what impact this has on them. And obviously, we're hoping this is going to be positive, but we've really worked hard to make sure that the project would have the impact that we were hoping to have through the research, through the consultations, and we're really working with the organizations that are in place in the region, so that so to get their opinion on this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, there's a few questions coming in now. This is great. So someone else is wondering if you could talk about the funding. They're wanting to know where the project is being funded from, internationally, nationally.
No, that's a very good question. The project is actually funded through the Government of Canada, so Global Affairs Canada, and Yeah, so this is the main donor for the project. They are obviously interested in funding women projects that advance women and girls' rights, and specifically through this one, education. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Someone else has a question. If you could explain a little bit more about how Cuso is going to be training the families in gender equality.
Mm-hmm. So this is something we've done through our other projects. So usually we have, I think I've talked a little bit about community conversation, but the idea is really to stimulate conversations in the communities and among the families so that they can, maybe come to understand, some of the barriers I've mentioned, how they are linked to expectations, right? So we can maybe discuss the workload at home for some of the girls and how that has an impact on them being able to complete their homework maybe, and which is something that they've mentioned a lot, that they go back to school and they feel like they haven't completed their homework, and that doesn't it doesn't make them feel good, obviously, and don't want to, it adds negative feeling towards school, so it makes it easier to drop out at some point. So if the families can be supportive and realize that they need some time to do homework, some of the workload might be too much, right? So we have ways to engage people in conversations, and then we'll also be running campaigns in the communities, maybe through radio, through as I was saying, engaging some of the leaders as well, so that they can engage their communities on the topic as well. So it's a slow stage. We're not doing this project in a year. The training with the family will also not be just a few months. Obviously, this is a long project, and we're hoping to plant seeds so that, well, at least for the girls, so that they can see change before the end of the project, but that continues after the 5 years of our intervention. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Someone else is asking if there's opportunity to get private sector support for the program to either help with funds or books or future internships. Is this something you might approach in year 3 or 4? So they're a question about private sector support.
Well, potentially. There's obviously maybe something we could be looking at, but I think I don't know if the person is thinking of the same thing as me, but this idea of maybe connecting students at the university level with opportunities, that's something, we could obviously kind of start thinking with the Ministry of Education, the Bureau of Education. I was translating for Canadian context here. At this time, we're working mostly with high school girls, so just before the transition to university, so that they are ready when they go. And so it's maybe not as appropriate, but definitely something we have in mind also for potential other projects.
Okay, thanks. Someone else is asking if this project is in Ethiopia only.
At this time, yes. The government of Canada did give us quite a lot of money, but it's only enough, and we're very frugal, I assure everyone. But it's enough for the scale of the project. So right now in Ethiopia, and then if it goes very well, I think we'll have support to try to find donors to potentially replicate it elsewhere. Obviously, we would have to do a bit more research. Like we did a big study before we in that specific in the Benishangul Gumuz region before we started this project, and even before the design. So we would have to do similar things. But yes, I can see why this intervention, I could see it being replicated elsewhere in the future. Talk to us in 5 years. Well, we might have some ideas for expansion for it to share with you.
Sure. So I think I mentioned at the beginning that this event is part of Celebrations for Gender Equality Week here in Canada. I'm just wondering if you could share, your thoughts on what we can do to support equality or gender equality around the world.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think everyone who came here today actually did something great, which is learning more. And especially in this case, it's about a topic that we might not be really familiar with. And that's what I did all week, actually. I, attended a bunch of webinars, learned more about like tools to use in my work, but also just kind of learn more about the situation of um, women and girls and non-binary people in different areas of the world and in Canada as well. So I think that that's a really great first step. I mean, people seem interested, but if you want to continue to learn more about this project, for example, or even our other project, I named a few, but we have some really great intervention in all of the countries where we work. So if you wanted to learn more, you can visit Cuso's website. I think I tried to type it in the chat box. Hopefully that was accessible to everyone. What was I going to say? Yeah, maybe do a little bit of reading, share with the people that are around you. I think that that's also a great way to have impact, right? To pass your knowledge on to other people, or have discussions around topics that you're learning about. And I would also encourage people, I mean, we're talking about Ethiopia today, but there are still some challenges here, and especially for certain groups of women in Canada. So I would encourage you to learn a little bit more about this and maybe see how you can support some of these these topics. Yeah.
Thanks, Catherine. That's great. So I know just to, I guess, answer that question too, I would just say, there's a social media campaign. You can share your story of a trailblazer, activist, advocate, working in any way to advance gender equality in their communities. It's hashtag because of you. And also there's an email that's going to go out after the session tonight with a link to look at Cuso's website, a link to fill out a survey for us, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute, but also there's a link to learn a little bit more about Gender Equality Week if you're interested. So it's one of the things you could do. So I want to thank everyone for your excellent questions, and thank you, Catherine, for sharing tonight. If you enjoyed this presentation, yeah. If you enjoyed this presentation, you can join us in November for our next Local Brews Global Views with Hope International Development Agency, or you can check out our Walk the Talk outdoor discussion series, socially distanced. Next one is October 27th in Winnipeg. You can watch online or on social media for more information. And like I mentioned, there's going to be an email coming in just a few minutes to the email you registered with a survey about this event. Let us know what you thought and share your feedback. So I invite you to put some plus signs in the chat if you enjoyed the talk tonight, and that'll be our applause for Catherine. So I just want to thank everyone again for attending, and thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing about Cuso's project.
Thank you. Happy Gender Equality Week to everyone.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, and have a great night.